In our last video, we discussed conjugates, which are super important for understanding the Rubik's Cube. We took a look at an example of U primed and its conjugate, R U primed, R primed. And we were looking at some similarities between those two motions and similarities between the cycle structure. So what I'd like to do in this video is show you how I got that cycle structure very quickly from taking a look at Excel. So I'm going to pop on over to Excel here, where I have a sheet where I've written down each of those motions, front, right, back, left, up, and down, and the functions that correspond to them. And over here, I've put together the right motion and the U prime motion. Now I'd like to show you real quick how I can get the R primed motion, and then how I can use Excel to find the R U primed, R primed motion. And I'd like to show you how very quickly also in Excel, just from knowledge of R and U primed, how I could highlight the stickers right here that are going to be altered by this R U primed R prime motion without even computing what that function is. So first, how can I get R primed really easily? Well, let's take a look at these values right here. Let's copy them down somewhere here. This row right here is telling me where the sticker started, and this row is telling me where that sticker ended. When I compute the inverse of the motion, I want to go back to where I came from. So instead of reading this chart top to bottom, I want to read it to bottom to top. Well, let's just highlight these cells. Let's sort and filter them by rows by row 10. Now the top row is shuffled and the bottom row is organized, and what we have in the top row is the inverse. So let's paste that right here. And you can double check that this is the inverse by saying in the motion R, 1 goes to 17. In R primed, 17 goes to 1. In the motion R, 6 goes to 7. In the motion R primed, 7 goes to 6. So you can double check that that process of just sorting by the bottom row works to get us R primed. Now let's take a look at how we would get R U primed, R primed. And what I'm actually going to do is get that in 2 steps. Let's first get R U primed, and then let's get R U primed, R primed. And what we'll need to do for this is use Excel's Hlookup command. After we've performed the motion R, whatever the output of the R function is, we want to look up that value in this table. And once we find that output value in the first row of that table, what we want to output is the value in the third row of that table. And all that can be accomplished with Excel's Hlookup command. And the first thing we put into the Hlookup function is the value we're looking up, which is the cell B3. The second thing we put in the Hlookup command is the table that we're looking the value up in. And we're going to use those absolute reference markers in Excel. So $B, $2, $Y, $5. And that highlights the table that we'll be looking things up in. Now, once we've looked up this value in Excel, we want to search for it in the first row of the table, and once we find it, what we want to output is the third row in the table. And the last thing that we put into the Hlookup command is the word true, because it is true that we want an exact match on our value. And we hit enter here, and we get the value of 20, which is indeed correct. The 1 maps to the 17 under R, and the 17 maps to the 20 under U primed. And we can drag that formula all the way down to figure out the whole function R U primed. Now with that row completed, we can just repeat the same process we've done to compute R U primed, R primed. We can use another Hlookup. Once R U primed is completed, this is the value we'll be looking up. We'll look it up in the same table, and this time we'll output what happens after we complete the R prime command, which is the 4th row in the table. And it is still true that we want an exact match. And we take that formula and drag it down. And there you have it, the entire function in tabular form of R U primed, R primed. And from here, we could go through and determine the cycle structure in the way we did in a previous video.